I interpreted that presence as God. So it was a big, formless, loving presence that was so huge, bigger than my house. It was like he just kind of picked me up. I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't hurting, nothing. It was just, I felt so much love. And we started moving, and we didn't go up and we didn't go down. We went sideways.
Hello, passionate listeners and watchers. Welcome to Passion Harvest. I am Louisa, your host. Thank you so much for joining us wherever you are in the world. Right now, my guest today is Sharon Milliman, and I'm so excited to have her on the show. Sharon has had 4 near-death experiences. Sharon's first NDE occurred at the age of 13 when she drowned while taking swimming lessons. Sharon was struck by lightning 4 times over the course of several years. The 4th lightning strike resulted in her second NDE. Her 3rd NDE occurred while she was undergoing emergency surgery. And Sharon experienced her 4th NDE due to an adverse reaction to seizure medication where she died. Sharon is the author of 3 books, A Song in the Wind, A Near-Death Experience, The Whispers in the Wind, A Poetic Journey of the Soul, and A Rose from Heaven. This is her story and this is her passion. Sharon Milliman, welcome to Passion Harvest, and I'm so excited again to have you on the show today. I can't wait to hear your journey that you're going to share with us.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, it's great. Finally, we've got together. My gosh, 4 near-death experiences. Wow. I mean, I guess what you signed up for, we were just saying that to go into detail about 4 of them, we might be here for days. But so I'd love you to talk about whatever you want to talk about, you know, the most pivotal experiences you had. And as I said before, my gosh, being struck by lightning 4 times, it's unbelievable. So I'm going to leave it to you to speak to the audience and talk about your experiences and what you learned and what you'd like to share. And then I'll ask you some questions afterwards, if that's okay with you.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay. That's fine. Wherever you want to start, Sharon.
Well, the lightning strikes, what happened was it was every other year I was hit. Twice was ball lightning and twice was lightning bolts. And then the 4th lightning strike is when I actually died. It came out of the sky and hit my right arm. And when it did, I felt this burning, searing, it was just an agonizing pain. And it hit my arm and it went across my chest. And then I was out on my body. It was just like peeling a banana, and I just came right up out of my body. But I didn't know that I was dead. I knew something had happened, and because after it hit me, I was sitting on the concrete steps talking on a cordless phone, and it had started to rain. And then I heard this thunder in the distance, and then the lightning bolt came out of the sky. I saw the thing, and that's when it hit my arm. But it traveled through my body and underneath the house, and we had a transformer in front of our house, and it blew that. I mean, it just, we had no power. The whole neighborhood had no power. But there were black char marks left on the concrete steps where I was sitting. And then the next step where my feet were.
Wow.
And
sorry, please go on.
It was just a moment of agony, and then I was out of my body. So, and
can I ask what you experienced during that out-of-body experience, the near-death experience?
Well, I don't know if I floated or I walked, but I went up the stairs and I was in my house, and I'm standing in my kitchen, and everything in my kitchen has this burnt gold look to it. And I was standing at the back door, and I looked at the sink across the room that I had lace curtains and flowers and things on the lace curtains, but they were not my curtains. And I thought that was kind of odd. And then I walked into my dining room and I noticed that none of the furniture that was in my dining room was my stuff. And excuse me, then I went from the dining room into the living room, and that stuff wasn't mine. And I was really confused. And I heard this old time radio show playing. It sounded like something from back in the Waltons. And I couldn't find the radio anywhere. And I thought, what is that noise? I mean, I didn't have any radios in my house, but this was a really old time radio show. And I kept walking through the house trying to figure out where my furniture was, where my family was, where this noise was. And it seemed like it lasted forever, but I'm sure it only lasted a minute or two. And because there was just no time, there was just, it was not like what we experience here. And I started to freak out. I really got upset. And I was just like, oh, I can't do this. I don't know what's going on. I'm scared. And as soon as I started to panic, there was this huge, formless, loving presence that appeared. And although it was formless, I just knew that whatever this presence was, and I interpreted that presence as God. So it was a big, formless, loving presence that was so huge, bigger than my house. And it was like he just kind of picked me up and just was holding me. And I felt this love, this love that was like, there was peace. I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't hurting. Nothing. It was just, I felt so much love. And we started moving, and we didn't go up and we didn't go down. We went sideways, and we went very rapidly through these pink and gold clouds. And they were the most beautiful clouds I'd ever seen. I've never seen clouds that beautiful, just beautiful pink and then outlined in this like liquid gold. They were absolutely breathtaking. So we got through those clouds and we entered into this garden, and we were just at the very entrance of this garden, and I could see the flowers on the around. It was, I don't know if we were walking through a doorway into the garden or what, but it was like I could see all these flowers. So when you look at my book, you'll see flowers. That's what the very first image that I saw were these beautiful pink and purple flowers all the way around. And then we started moving further into the garden. And when we got into the garden, the two men stepped out to greet me. And at first I thought they were angels because they were glowing from the inside out. They they were wearing this beautiful, very expensive linen with a herringbone weave. And the weave was just, it's like they took a picture of the weave and stuck it right here in my face so I could see the weave pattern. Now, I don't know exactly what that meant at the time. I think I have an idea now what it meant, but back then I didn't know what they were trying to show me. And they smiled at me. And as soon as they smiled at me, I knew exactly who they were. They weren't angels. They were my two brothers who had died when I was, they were babies. I was a year old when one died and 2 years old when the other one died. And it was like, oh my gosh, I know who you are. I was so excited. And we had this wonderful family reunion. And well, they were between late 20s, early 30s. And they had long curly hair, darker blonde than mine, but with this color running through it. And I kept telling him, I was like, oh my God, Dad would be so proud of you if he could see you. You're so beautiful. the colors were so rich and vibrant. There were flowers and there was a stream and trees, and I heard birds, and there were landscapes and rolling hills and valleys, and just I saw buildings, and I saw where babies and children go when they die, and that they're loved and cared for by, mentors and teachers and angels and people that are trained to take care of them, and they grow. I mean, I saw lots and lots of people, and they all had bodies, but nobody was over the age of late 20s, early 30s. And so when they told me that I had died, I looked down the front of me like this to see if I had a body. And I did. I looked just like me, only a better version of me. And but I glowed too, just like everybody else was glowing, just like from the inside out. They kind of all looked like they spent the whole day in the sun. They were just beautiful. So I looked down the front of me. I saw my hair. I saw my clothes that I had been wearing when I got hit. I was barefoot, so I could see my feet. I could feel the grass. I could smell. My senses were so heightened and so aware that I could see, without even turning my head, I could see what was behind me, what was in front of me, very far distances with great detail. And I thought, well, I can do this. It's so wonderful here. I can do this. I'll stay right here. And okay, so I'm having my life review, and all these people are gathered around, and so I'm watching it. It's a black and white movie on an old-fashioned movie reel, and it's from my whole life, from the time I was born until that moment where I had died. And it went so fast. But I came to realize that God didn't judge me, and none of those people judged me, and I didn't judge me. And so that was it. It was over. And all I did was feel love through it. And then after that, I heard a male voice say, what you put out into the universe will come back to you. And I had never heard words like that before, so I wasn't sure exactly what that meant. And then it was like being hooked up to a giant IV bottle of knowledge. I was being infused with all this divine wisdom. It was like bam, 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 all these questions that I didn't even ask the question. I didn't know how to ask the question, but I was getting all these answers, who God is, what God is, how the universe was put together, things like that. And it was just like, I was walking around going, oh my God, you're so awesome. This is so cool. And we human beings make you so complicated, and you're not complicated at all. It's so cool. And I just kept saying that over and over. And it was like he was showing me this big chalkboard. It's like 6 chalkboard or 10 chalkboards long, and there's someone writing with chalk an equation to explain gravity or physics or whatever. And I don't know anything about that kind of stuff, but I saw this man writing all this, those equations. And God was like, but that's not really how it is. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And it was good because I don't understand all that. But the bottom line is that he was just so simple, and I didn't get judged. I was only loved through it all. So then when he had said those words to me, I saw this. It was like, if you put out love and compassion and understanding and respect, that stuff's going to come back to you. But if you put out lying and cheating and stealing and evil things, that stuff's going to come back to you. but he showed it to me in a way that like a boomerang. And you know how you throw a boomerang and it spins, gets faster and faster, and then it comes back and it gets you, but you don't know exactly where it's going to come. You know, you have to really watch for it. Well, that's kind of what he was trying to say to me, that all of these things that we put out, they go out into the universe, they gain spin and gain momentum and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And when they come back, it's a whole lot bigger coming back to you than what you put out. And so I've called it the Boomerang Effect.
That's great.
And I said, okay, God, I really don't want to get hit with a boomerang. So that was a big change for me. When I came back, it was like, I'm watching what I say. I try to be kind to everyone and listen and do acts of love, because that's what I want to see. That's what I want to come back, and not anger and resentment and jealousy and all those things. So then after that, my brothers and this big loving presence was walking with me through the garden, and I was looking at all of the landscapes and the buildings, and I could see there was a library, and like I said, there was a place for babies and children to go. Mm-hmm. There was a healing building that had these beautiful healing pools. With water. It was like living water, live water. The water was alive. And that was for people who died traumatic deaths or suicides. And it's kind of like a spiritual hospital where they go and they're gently brought to the awareness of what's happened and where they are. And I saw a library, and it was so beautiful. It was made of this rich mahogany wood. And it was the biggest library I ever saw in my life. I mean, it had thousands and thousands and thousands of books on every subject you could possibly imagine. And I called it the Hall of Knowledge, but I'm not sure if that's what it's really called. But I mean, the books were from ceiling to floor. And it was the most beautiful. The wood was this rich mahogany wood. There's a grove of trees off to the right of me as I'm facing the city. And I don't know, people have asked me before what were the trees, and I don't know what kind of trees they were, but Jesus walks out of the grove of trees, and he's walking over to me. And at that point, everybody else goes away. And it's just me and him. And this was my first clue that I was coming back, but it was like over my head. Everything was over my head at this point. Right. So he said, I love you, and don't be afraid. I'm with you. It's okay. And he walked with me over to, it looked like a wooded glen. And I could see light streaming through the tops of the trees. And there were pine cones and pine needles on the ground and little blue flowers popping up. And there was a stream. And the stream just sparkled like diamonds. And there were rocks that the water was going over the rocks. And there was a log. And I sat down on the end of the log. And there was a man sitting on the other end of the log. And I knew that man was God. Jesus walked away. So I'm sitting there and I'm talking to this man. And he's got a stick, and he's kind of doodling in the pine needles and the dirt, And we just kind of chit-chatted for a minute. And then he said, what would you do if it was just me and you? And I was like, what? I don't understand. And he said, what would you do if it was just me and you? And I still didn't understand the question. So he said, okay, well, come with me. So we walked further into the wooded area, and there was a clearing, and he just kind of waves his hand, and I could see like the sky opened up. It was like he unzipped the sky, and I could see the vastness of the universe, the spinning planets and sparkling stars and rainbow colored gases, but there was no people. There were no houses, no cars, no trees, no animals, nothing. It was just all of that. And I looked at him and I said, I don't think so. This is huge. And with all of this and just me and you would not like me after the first 10 minutes, because I would talk your ear off and you wouldn't like me anymore. And when I said that, he kind of threw his head back, and he had the bluest, sparkly blue eyes. His eyes were just magnificent. And when he laughed, his laugh was so contagious that I started laughing, and I thought, that was the dumbest thing to say to God. No, I mean, who does that? So I don't know. I was kind of embarrassed at my response, and he just laughed. And then we went back and sat down with the log. And he said it again. What would you do if it was just me and you? No parents, no husband, no children, no friends, nobody, just me and you. Well, I still didn't quite know how to answer that question. So I'm looking at this oak tree, oak tree that must have been 1,000 years old. It was huge. And I could see the detail of the bark, and I could see the nutrients coming through the roots from the ground. And I saw the nutrients going up, and they were in the leaves, and I could see the little things moving in the veins of the leaves. And what I saw was the tree pulls the nutrients out of the ground. The leaves clean the air. We breathe the air. So everything is connected and all works together. And so as I'm noticing all of this detail, and I don't know why I said this, because I've never read the Quran in my life, never seen it. I don't know anything about that tradition at all. But I said, God, your 100th name in the Quran is God is everywhere, God is nowhere, and God is in me. And he said, yeah, that's right. Well, come to find out that there's really only 99 names written in the Quran, but the 100th name it's too holy. It's not, you don't say it. But here I said it, and God was like, that's right. And then I said, God, you made this tree, you were in this tree. So when I see this tree, I see you. He said, yeah, that's right. And then I started, I don't know if he was putting these thoughts in my head or if I was just thinking these things, but I started thinking about my parents. And I said, God, you made my parents. You were in my parents. So when I see my parents, I see you. He said, yes, that's right. I said the same thing about my children. And then I started thinking about someone who had been very cruel to me and it hurt me very deeply. And I said, God, you made these people that are cruel to other people, but you made these people. You are in these people. So when I see these people, I see you. And he said, yeah, that's right. He said, now I have a question for you. I thought, oh, wow. Okay. And he said, when you look in the mirror, what do you see? And my normal answer, kind of put my hands down on my lap, and I was just like, how am I going to get through this? Because my normal answer would have been not much, just me, because I'd been told my whole adult life, you're ugly, you're fat, you're stupid, you can't do anything. And so I was buying into that. And that was a worldview of me. But what he was trying to get me to do is to see myself the way he did. And so I said, God, when I look in the mirror, you made me, you are in me. So when I look in the mirror, I see you. And he was so happy with that answer. He was just like, yeah, that's right. That's the right answer. And I felt like a little girl who just got an A on a test. I was like, oh, right, I got it right. But then it was more like, that infused knowledge again. And I could hear him saying, I don't make mistakes. I don't make junk. You are not a mistake. I made you for a specific purpose, and I don't see you the way the world sees you. I don't see you. You are not what the world has made you to be. And I love you. And, you have a specific reason to be here, or you wouldn't be here. And so that was, to me, that was huge. That was just spinning in my head. And I was trying to wrap my head around those kind of words because I wasn't used to hearing that. Well, then after that, there were these two, they were angels, but they just looked like women in pretty robes, gowns, ornate gowns. And they took me to this lake. And this lake was like, looking, it was so clear. It was like looking through glass. And I kind of looked down like this, and I could see the earth below. And what I saw were future world events, things that are happening in the world right now. And what they were trying to get me to understand is that these things do not have to happen. It's our human collective selfishness that's going to make these things happen. And if we change how we do things, these things will not happen, but we're not changing. And so these things are now taking place. And the next thing I know, I'm back in my body, and I'm feeling that agonizing, horrific pain. Now, if there was a conversation about whether I was to come back or not, it was probably not a good one, and I don't remember it because I was probably kicking and screaming all the way.
Right.
So I don't remember that part of it, but I do remember I was laying next to the stairs, and I could see the char marks. And the doctor, I had to go to the hospital, and they did neurological exams, and they did heart tests. And I have, like I said, I have a right bundle branch block and seizures from the lightning.
Wow, what an incredible experience. Can I ask you just a few questions about that, and we'll go on to the next one that was a continuation. I have to ask you about the weave in your brother's clothing. What did that symbolize to you?
It was a few years ago that my husband, he loves to bake. So he was in the kitchen and he was baking bread. And when he had the TV on, there was a history show about the Shroud of Turin. And when I walked in the room, they did exactly the same thing. They had the picture, like, the shroud, and then they had this little snapshot that they put right up on the screen, and it was a herringbone weave. It was the exact same cloth that they were wearing, and they showed me this herringbone weave, and I saw that as I walked in the room, that same exact little shot, and I dropped to the floor and I started sobbing. And my husband was like, what is wrong? What's wrong? And I told him, I said, that's what my brothers were showing me. I said, it's exactly the same thing that they were showing me, So I've spoken to an archbishop friend of mine who lives in the UK, and he studies the shroud, and he believes that that's what I was seeing. They were showing me that the shroud is the burial cloth and that it is authentic.
Wow.
It hit me like a ton of bricks when I walked in. I was on the floor. It was unbelievable.
You spoke about your IV drip of knowledge, and I love that terminology. What was the most profound IV drip of knowledge you received?
That God is simple. It's not, he's not judging us. We do the judging. And if, to me, that was really huge. That's what was missing, because I didn't know I was supposed to judge myself, and I didn't. And all I felt was the love. Oh my gosh, the love was beyond. There's just no language. English language is very lacking when it comes to trying to describe these kinds of things that are undescribable, and the beauty and everything.
I know it's so hard to put into words. Many near-death experiences say that, but you're doing a good job. You spoke about you looked down and you saw future events. Are there any other possible future events, that predictions that you saw?
Actually, I have a document that has just about everything in it. I did not put in my book everything I saw, because I don't want to take away the positiveness of the book. And I share some things, but some of the things were just, like, oh my God, I don't know. But I saw things that were as a result of the 9/11 attacks. So I was seeing other terrorist attacks on the country. I was seeing governments toppling over. I was seeing women and children being used as human shields, bombings, different places. I saw catastrophic world, like tsunamis. I saw earthquakes. I saw a lot of illness. I did see what I'm assuming is this thing that we're going through now, because what I saw was a table. And on this side of the table were people in hazmat suits. On this side of the table were people lined up. And they were from all over the world. They weren't just, white people or whatever. They were just for everywhere. And they had masks on, and they were getting injections. But there was a question as to whether the injections were what they really thought they were getting. So there was some kind of question about the injections. So I didn't understand that. But then when COVID hit and I started seeing people in hazmat suits and,
and having injections.
Oh, yes. I thought, that had to be. I saw stuff like martial law, riots, and I saw men in SWAT gear standing on street corners holding guns. There was another thing I saw that I don't know how to interpret it, but it looked like a human being, but it really wasn't a human being. It was like a robot. So it was sort of like a artificial intelligence or something. I called him a RoboCop, because I remember like telling the angels, I said, that's RoboCop. But so I don't know
very interesting
what to make of all that.
Yeah, sometimes you see the visual images, but until they occur, it's hard to know exactly to make those predictions. What experiences you've had? I guess I have to ask you the question, are you afraid of dying?
I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of how.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, like at 13, I died of water. Then I died of fire. Then I died of
air, maybe. If you look at the elements.
No air. And then the other one was acute respiratory acidosis, which is the same thing. You can't breathe. You stop breathing. Yeah. So it was like, now what's left? So I keep praying that I just go in my sleep nice and peacefully.
Well, gosh, Sharon.
Or dress.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for sharing those experiences. What, I mean, I guess you must get this question asked a lot. Why are we here? Why are we here in our humanness?
We're here to, it's within the human experience that the soul does the most growing. And everything that I saw in heaven was still about your soul's growth. The schools, the libraries, everything, we continue to grow and change. But the bodies that we have are very similar to the bodies that we have here, but we only get to a certain age. But our souls keep growing through experience. And so what I learned is when we come here, this is the hardest place in the world to be. And there's a lot of stuff that we have to deal with, and there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of happiness, there's joy, but there's all kinds of things that we have to experience while we're here. And it's all for our soul's growth. And one of the things I learned is that we're here to love. We're here to learn what God love is, agape love. It's because there are many kinds of love, and that's all great and that's wonderful, but we're here to learn how to love the way God loves us, with no strings attached and not expecting anything in return. You just love. And so we're here to learn how to do that. And another thing I learned is that it's the little things that we do. It's not talking to 10,000 people in an amphitheater or giving, millions of dollars. That's really nice and that's wonderful. But what you're going to see in your life review is the little things. Did you share your toys when you were little? Did you steal your sister's Easter basket? Did you give your sweater to someone who was cold at school and they didn't have one? Or do you give the poor person on the corner of the street holding up a sign, do you give them money, or do you pass them by because you think they're going to do drugs with it? Because it really doesn't matter what they do with it. If you give it out of love, what they do with it's on them. It's not on you. So whatever we do, however big or small the act is, if it's done with love, that is so huge. That's what God cares about. That's what matters. And
yeah. Thank you. That
and
was
the other thing.
Sorry.
No.
You go ahead. The other thing.
The other thing that I learned was that no matter how tiny we might be in the vastness of all that God created, we are so intricately important to everything. Us being here is not a mistake. I mean, everything is connected to everything else. And us being here is so important. And He loves every one of us so much that He thinks about us 24/7. Because if He stopped thinking about us for 1 minute, we would just poof, cease to be as if we never were. So to be in the divine mind of God 24/7, when there's 7.7 bazillion people on this planet, and He loves each and every one of us the same way because of our uniqueness and our specialness. And there is not another person like you on this planet. You are so special to Him and so beautiful to Him. And you may have someone that looks like you, but that person is not you. You are so unique. And to be, He thinks about you every single moment of every single day. And that's why you're still here. To be loved that much is just, to me, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's very comforting. And look, we're all going to experience suffering at some point in our lives. I think everyone asks why suffer, but you sort of explained that it's for our soul's growth and evolution. How does one, whether they've lost someone or however they're suffering, how do they alleviate or relieve their suffering, in your opinion, to some extent?
Well, I took care of my mom for the last 6.5 years of her life, and she had Alzheimer's, and I was her caregiver. And I watched her. I was with her every moment of every day, and I watched her disappearing in front of my face, and there wasn't a thing I could do except to, make her comfortable at that moment. And I suffered over that. I prayed over that. It was like, how could you let this woman who was so holy and so beautiful just disappear in front of my face, and I can't do anything? Well, nothing happens. I mean, God does things for reasons, and we may not understand why, because he sees the bigger picture. We don't. Before I got hit by the lightning, I had a traumatic brain injury. I fell backwards on a ramp, and I cracked my head really bad on the ramp, and I had what they call permanent closed head trauma and a closed head injury. It took me 8 years to recover from that. And at one point, there was a misconnection in my brain, and I couldn't walk. So I was in a wheelchair, and I had to teach myself how to walk again. And I kept asking God, why? What is the purpose of this? You do this, and then you hit me with lightning, and then, what is your deal? When I started taking care of my mom, I did research on Alzheimer's, and there was something that stuck out to me, and it said, Alzheimer's is like a brain injury. And it clicked in my head. Oh my gosh, that's why I went through what I did, because I was able to put myself in her shoes. I was able to know what she was feeling when she couldn't remember to take a shower. She couldn't remember to take her medicine. She didn't know how to use the bathroom. She didn't know how to eat, all of these things. And I had gone through all of that. I had to reteach myself everything. And so I was able to understand with compassion and with love. And I was able to help her get through those times. And then not only that, but I was able to help my dad understand where she was at any given time, that she was no longer in the present moment. She was in a past, and she was in a, whatever it was that she was remembering, whether it was her memory or someone else's memory, it was her. And, he kept trying to bring her back into the present moment. I said, Dad, she'll never be back here. You have to accept her where she's at. So I was able to help him understand. So also, the other question about when we lose someone that we love, we pray for their healing. We pray that God will heal them, and that they won't die, and that they'll be okay. And sometimes that works, and other times he heals them perfectly by bringing them home to him. And what I saw in heaven was there was no sadness. There was no Alzheimer's. There was no illness. Everybody was young and beautiful. And so I know when we lose someone we love, we suffer here. Grief is just a part of love. It's an extension of our love. So if we love deeply, we're going to grieve deeply too. And that's okay. But our loved ones have gone on to a place that is beyond magnificent. And we will see them again. And they will send us signs to let us know that they're okay. She did. And I had to teach my dad to see the signs. She still loves you. She's not forgotten you. She's still here. And she would send the signs and things like that. So it was a beautiful teaching someone who totally didn't believe in that stuff. It was teaching him how to look for that stuff, and it gives people hope.
What an angel you are, Sharon. That's the only the word that comes to mind. That was so beautiful. I've asked all the questions. Is there something you'd like to share with the Passion Harvest audience, or I'm just going to leave it up to you now, whatever you'd like to say, whatever you feel called to say, to share with the audience on a final note.
Just whatever it is you do in your life, whether it's big or small, whether it's cooking dinner for your family, doing laundry, picking up cigarette butts off the ground, you know, our earth is a living entity in itself. We have to take care of our earth, and God has given all of us enough resources and enough space to take care of every single person on this planet. So there's a sacred way of using those resources. You take only what you need and leave the rest for the next person. You take care of the water, you keep the earth clean. It's just important to, whatever it is you do it with love, and that's huge. It doesn't matter what it is, just love, because that's what we're here for, just to love. And that's what you see in your life review.
Beautiful. Sharon Milliman, thank you so much for being on Passion Harvest. It's really been delightful and insightful to have you on the show. And I've just loved I love your messages of love. It's just fantastic. And thank you for being so open and honest and sharing your truth with the world.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. It was an honor.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, Sharon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
If you like this episode, please do subscribe for weekly passionate, inspirational interviews.